Welcome back to season 2 of Smitten Kitchen. I'm Deb Perlman, and I'm so excited about this season because I asked you what you wanted me to cook next and what you wanted to see some video demos of. And I went through all of your comments and your emails and your DMs, and we came up with a list of recipes that I think you are going to be so excited to see. They fit really well with a fall holiday theme, which are the weeks we have coming up. And the single, overwhelmingly most requested recipe was for homemade pie dough. Sorry. I know it can be kind of scary, and I want to completely demystify it for you. I want to show you how easy it can be. I make it in one bowl with regular ingredients, and even when it comes out like slightly imperfect, which of course it won't because you're going to be so good at this, you are going to be so proud of it because it's going to taste amazing, buttery and flaky, and you did it all by yourself. We are going to use regular all-purpose flour. We're going to have some cold water, fine sea salt, or you can use kosher salt or whatever you've got, regular sugar, and then 2 sticks of cold butter, 1 cup. I'm going to start by measuring the flour. We are going to use 2.5 cups of flour, and then we are going to add to that 1 tablespoon of sugar. So I'm using fine sea or table salt, but if you only have a coarse or kosher or sea salt, you want to use twice as much. So we're going to whisk it together just so it's all combined. And then we're going to add our cold butter. Let's talk about adding cold butter. There are a million ways that you can add butter to flour to make some sort of pie dough. My favorite technique though is I love using this tool called a pastry blender, and you can see it has these sort of dull knives on it. I'm not like hurting myself, and I love the way it breaks it up. It's not a lot of work, and I end up just making it all in one bowl. First, I'm gonna start by taking the cold butter and I'm gonna just cut it into smaller pieces. Just breaking this down a little bit. Clearly, we're not gonna, I'm not focused on making this perfect because it's all gonna be fine once we get it into the bowl. Demystified. And then I'm gonna start using the blender to cut these into smaller pieces. And you can watch me do it. It is so easy. It starts with all these mixed size pieces, but it slowly breaks them into the size that you want. And as we cut it, the pieces of the butter are getting coated in flour, and this is really the essential part of making those flakes that we all want in our pie dough. And as they bake, air is released and it puffs around the butter, and that's how you get all that flakiness. This is the hardest thing we're gonna do all day. Right now, we're not there yet, but we're getting closer. Right now we've got like chunky, sort of walnut sized pieces. We wanna work this a little bit further. And what I am looking for is something that looks a bit like coarse cornmeal and pieces as big as small peas, or almost like a large or pearl couscous. And that's gonna ensure every one of these pieces of butter, teeny and large, become flakes in your pie dough. I know, as I said, that people find making pie dough complicated and scary, and I promised I would demystify it. And the number one thing I want you to know, this is the only thing you need to know, is keep your ingredients cold. That's it. Butter melts when it's warm. When it melts, you start to have this globby, greasy, hard to control thing. Just pop it in the freezer for 1 minute. You can do the fridge for a couple minutes too, but you can just throw it in your freezer, the whole bowl, everything in it, and you'll be back where you need to be. It's really hard to mess up if you keep all of your ingredients cold. So we're gonna use 1/2 cup of very cold water. This is directly from the fridge. And we're gonna add the water. And this is it, this is the whole magic, okay? You ready? We're just gonna start bringing it together. I'm really just kind of smashing the water into the floury, buttery bits and trying to bring it together into these clumps. Not a very, crags, globs of dough. Okay, you can see, look how fast that came together. We're not mixing at any point past when it starts to come together. Now I'm gonna take this, and we're gonna divide this into 2 pieces. So I basically just kind of form it into a round, and then I eyeball what looks like half a circle. And now I'm gonna divide these 2 pieces. I'm gonna wrap these 2 pieces in paper. So we are gonna fold this into a packet. I'll flatten it out a little bit, but not a lot. Any kind of round or oblong shape is fine. And then we'll do the second piece. We have our 2 doughs, and we are going to chill these in the fridge until they're absolutely solid. This is going to take 1 to 2 hours. You could also make these a day in advance. You could make these the night before. You could keep these in the fridge for really up to like 5 to 6 days, and they taste great. You could freeze these for months. They really keep as long as they're tightly wrapped. So I'm going to move these into the fridge, and we'll let them chill. We have very cold pie dough, and I really don't want you to skip the step. Like, don't skimp on the time that you need. If it's not solid to the touch, if it doesn't feel like a cold, firm stick of butter, put it back in, give it more time, because it's only going to be frustrating to work with pie dough that is warm. I wouldn't do it on purpose, but if the pieces are going to come out a little bit uneven, I feel for the lighter one, and I use that one on the bottom. When I make my apple pie, I really heap on the apples. I fill it beyond what seems normal or rational to put in a pie dough. And because of that, I need a little bit more coverage on top. The doming on top is going to be much higher. The reason is as it bakes, it's going to settle down quite a bit, but I want it to be as tall as possible going in. So I need a little more dough. Let me find, what am I looking for? My rolling pin. Haha, I found it. You can just use a bowl of flour and shake it out, but I have this cute little shaker thing. So we're going to start with that. We're going to unwrap the dough. And you can see, by the way, look at that marbling. Those are the pieces of butter. They are a lot of what makes the dough flaky by not having them too small. Visible butter, visible flakiness. We don't want it to be all visible. You don't want to see like giant chunks everywhere, but a few pieces like that are a-okay. So when you take it out, it's very cold and it will seem difficult to roll. You have to put like your shoulders into it, and that may be difficult. But you can also wait a couple minutes and let it soften a little bit. But I encourage you not to wait too long, because if you wait too long, you're going to start with an already soft dough, and it's going to be an uphill battle from there. So I vote for starting with little rolls, little bit at a time. I start from the center, I push out. You want to make sure the counter is really well floured, and one way that I check for this is I just keep moving the dough, and I know if the dough is moving that it's not stuck, because once it starts sticking it gets a little more difficult. I'm not trying to go from a thick disc to a flat pancake very quickly, and I do that because I know the second issue that people have when they roll out is it starts forming cracks at the edges, and it feels like the more you roll, the bigger the cracks get. I'm going to show you that if you go slowly, you're going to get a lot fewer cracks. This is a dough for a standard regular pie plate. This one is like as old as time, and I think it's 9 inches. So we're looking for a couple inches of overhang. Oh, that sounded terrible. Now, if it's taking you a few minutes and the dough's gotten very warm and soft and it feels like sticky or whatever, don't fight soft dough. Slide it back onto the parchment, put it on a board or a plate, and put it in the freezer for a couple minutes, or in the fridge for 5 or 10. Just chill it again. This is cold to the touch. It feels like a carton of milk coming out of the fridge. That's what we want. And I'm rotating it also just to help keep it round, and probably to make up for the fact that I probably don't roll very evenly. As you can see, there is a huge difference. It was like rock solid, and now it's still very cold to the touch, but look how floppy this is. I always check with the actual tin. And as you can see, this goes we're looking for at least 2 inches around it, because we need room for it to drape into the center. So I can very easily just go like this. Everyone's got a different method for moving pie dough, but I just like to do this loose fold. I'm not creasing it, just folding it. And then in the pie pan, I unfold it. Look at that. The trick here is you don't want to press, you actually want to lift. If you press, it kind of springs back a bit. It really just wants to be the size that it is. And besides, why stretch out your hard work? You just did this beautiful dough. After it's in and you've opened it up and you've draped it in, and it feels like it's in every corner. And if it doesn't, just give it more slack so it's really in there. And then we're going to take this overhang and we are going to trim it to about 1 inch. Much longer than it seems like it needs to be, not much. But because we're going to use this to seal it to the top crust. The thing is that you can always trim it down further if you have too much, but you can't make it grow again. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use that piece of parchment paper to line it, which will be helpful in case there's any drips. So, because the most important thing that you need to know when you're making pie dough is to keep everything cold all the time, we're gonna go ahead and pop this back in the fridge so it stays as cold as possible, because cold pie doughs are easier to work with and they make nicer crusts. So in the fridge it goes. Now, if you want to make a regular two-crusted pie, just one piece on the bottom and one piece on the top, you would roll out the top the same way you rolled out the bottom, just into a big round, and then we would trim it down to size. However, gotta be fancy. Can't just do things simple. So I am going to make a lattice top, and I want to show you how easy it is. And I also want to show you that I do it extremely imperfectly. I'm kind of messy and like a little sloppy about it, and it's still going to come out looking good. And so I want you to know that when you make even the same amount of effort or more of one, it's going to look amazing. I find when I want to make a lattice top, it's a little bit easier if I start in a slightly more rectangular shape. I know that doesn't really make sense because the pie is round, but if you think about it, what you're trying to do is get more strips out of the same piece. And so you can cross them over without running out of dough. I'm generally looking for like about 14 inches wide, and then I'm looking for just about as long, like once it's that width, to go as far in the other direction as feels natural. I know that this rolling pin is 16 inches, so like I'm checking a little bit, but I'm not checking a lot. Any kind of rectangle will work though. We've got this dough and it's in a rectangle-ish shape, and it's also getting a little bit soft as it warms up. And as I told you, the most important thing is that we want to keep everything cold. We just want to bring this back to the fridge to cool off, so we can cut it into nice, clean strips for the top. And while we do it, while it's chilling, we'll go make the filling for the pie. It smells so good. I've put together the filling for my even more perfect apple pie. I cut the slices a little bit thinner, and I macerate it in the sugars and the spices that I'm gonna use. And by letting it sit for a bit, the apples soften a little bit and I can pile even more apples in the shell. So this is the filling, and I'm gonna start heaping it into the pie, and then I'll show you how to make a quick lattice for the top. I'm gonna go ahead and just use my hands here. And this allows me to just kind of really spread it out, because I wanna fit in as much apples as I can. And the only way to do that is to really make sure that they're very even and level. Because I'm sure you're looking at this thinking there's no way this is gonna fit, but we're gonna do our best. We're gonna make it happen. I think we're holding ourselves to unfair standards for pie. We should not compare our homemade pies to pies you might find in a diner counter. Those pies are made completely differently. They're not using a flaky all butter crust. They are probably not putting in 4.5 pounds of freshly picked apples. I would rather eat a slightly rustic, even slightly messy pie that was homemade from good ingredients, because it tastes amazing. At the bottom of the bowl, there's always a lot of juices and spices, and I've heard that there are people say you shouldn't use them. I am not one of them. This is where all the good stuff is. I'll pretend I'm right-handed.
Pretend you're right-handed.
It's weird. How do you guys do this? This is something you want. These are going to be delicious juices that make the apples taste caramelly and spiced and help the pie thicken up. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cut this diagonally into some strips. You can do any size strips, but I'm gonna just cut it into, I don't know, inchish. I think inchish. I'm gonna pull every other strip out and start laying it across the pie. The next step in making a lattice is you wanna take every other piece and pull it back halfway. And then we lay one piece in the other direction. Once we've put that piece down and returned the strips to their original position, I'm gonna go take the next strips, the opposite ones that we hadn't used, and pull them back. And I'm gonna start adding more pieces until the whole thing looks woven on top. When I rolled out the lower pie crust, I gave it about a 1/2 to 1 inch overhang and I trimmed it. This is the lattice acts as the top crust. I'm gonna trim each of these strips in just to the edge of the pie pan, which is a little bit shorter. And I'm gonna do that so we can fold the bottom over the top and give it a really nice even seal. So here I'm gonna start folding the bottom crust over the top, and it makes a nice, clean, fairly clean seal, holding the pieces down. You can see this is already so filled with juices that it's dripping a little bit, but it's all good. My goal here is not pie perfection. I want it to be the best tasting pie. This is going to be wildly delicious because we made it from scratch. For a little extra gloss, I am going to brush this whole thing, every slat, with egg wash. I had a bit left over. You don't have to if eggs are an issue, like you can absolutely skip it. For a little extra crunch and texture, I'm gonna put some coarse sugar on the outside. You don't need it, like it'll taste fine without it. But the truth is that there's very little sugar in the pie dough, so I always think this is a nice finish. This is very likely to trickle out a little bit. You'll see some bubbling over of juices as it bakes, and I think that's a good thing. I would rather have a pie that was really delicious and full of caramelized juices than I would like a dry one. So be fine with that. Line the tray for easy cleanup, and I will show you this when it comes out. I want to show you how amazing this crust is. It is so flaky. Like, look at these pieces. Look at this, like look at this just shard of pie dough. And this all came from that work we did getting the butter just right into the flour. And we did this, and it was so easy. We used no fancy equipment. We did it all in one bowl from simple ingredients. There's some beautiful color on here. It's so crisp. It has such a nice crumb. Should we try it? Best job ever. I really have the best job ever. All right, I'm going in. I'm not sharing this. Do I have to share this? This is exactly why this crust is my favorite. It comes out so flaky and light. It's got such a wonderful buttery flavor. You can really taste it. It's not crazy sweet. It's not very heavy. And I want you to remember that, you know, of course I'm eating it with apples because they're in season right now, but you can use this crust for any pie you like. Thank you for coming back for season 2. I think you're gonna love these recipes. You chose them yourself, and so they're gonna be extra awesome. I hope you like this video, and I hope you subscribe, and we see you back here next week with a new recipe.